What's up, everybody? I'm CMP with producercourses.com. Don't forget to stop by sample class. Check out the only sample course that will take you from chord to composition to cash, not just making samples, but getting into the business of selling your stuff. Now, I want to do a breakdown of this sample that's coming out of my new pack, Flight 96. It's like a Don Toliver type of vibe. The kind of like the approach that I've been taking nowadays, as opposed to making, compositions with a whole mess of stems, is more or less because I'm realizing that most people who use samples, they're just, they want something they can drag and drop and put in the DAW and put drums underneath. I'm going back, approaching it more of like a song collaboration type of thing, making four parts. If I got them, I could have four different parts of the beat, right? So that's kind of part of my template in live right now. Is I'll have a part A, a part B, a part C, and D. This sample revolves around this kind of washed out piano. And all that is that to get that, it's just two chords. If you wanted to do something like that, you pick two chords that you like, and whether you're using an actual keyboard, right? So I could control the attack. And I remember, like, back in the day, this was a technique that 40 said that he was doing with a lot of Drake's records, where he would take a regular piano and say expand, and then just reduce the attack on it so that it felt like a pad. So I just made a piano pad out of this. The next thing that is in this sample is this only one loop. And if you aren't up on only one in his packs, you should check them out, especially if you make samples. He does royalty free percussion packs, which means that you can use these in your samples. What's awesome about it is when you listen to it soloed, this texture. So I know, like, a lot of people, you want to get, that nice watery texture in your samples. You don't know which effects to use. This is how you do it. You just put one of these in your mix, bury it in the mix to where it's audible, but it's not taking over the whole vibe of the sample. Is more something that's felt than heard. The next thing that I added to the sample was, when you have a sound like this piano pad and it's up in the higher octaves, you want to start to fill out like the lower mids so that your sample doesn't sound thin. If a producer plays your sample and it just sounds really thin and it doesn't come out of the speakers big, especially if they're using laptop speakers, they're probably going to pass on it. So an octave below these chords, I added this pad, and it was able to kind of fill out the sound. Now, when you're the philosophy behind this four-part arrangement is, I want to be able to give the producer four parts. I want them to have these samples and be like, oh, okay, I'm really getting value here. I could build my beat out. So what I'm doing is I approach it like it's telling a story. So in the beginning, we're just gonna have, the chords, the texture. That's going to be the intro. Now I'm going to build upon it by adding a melody, which is this pluck right here. And well, first let me show you these effects that went in on the pad. The pad had to take out that sub low, taking out 8K, which was competing with the sound of the piano, taking out a little 1K and a little 2K. And you see, these are all really small bumps. This is my favorite EQ. It goes a long way. Then I went ahead and washed it out with the brigade chorus. You can hear the effect of this with and without. When you put that on, it just kind of sits it back. And then just using this filter, the Simplon. This is just like an easy high and low pass filter, just rolling off the highs, making sure that that wasn't fighting with the pad. So onto the pluck here. what's important, and I do this with a lot of my samples, especially when you have these chord based samples where you see how I'm dropping chords on the downbeat here. If you're if you're dropping chords on the downbeat, you don't have to stack, start your melody on the one also. Like let your chord come in, play, give it a second to breathe, and then play your melody so that it's almost like a response to the chord. Here, listen to this again. That's a technique that is used, in a lot of like older, 70s and 80s styles of music where people were actually playing up against each other. Call and response is a big, big, compositional idea. So you're going to make a more convincing sample by remembering to utilize that, then instead of having a chord hit, your melody hit, your bass note hit, and then when the producer goes to utilize this, then their drum is hitting. You just have this wall of sound that is really competitive. Now, this next part, I used one of my favorite guitars. This is the Evolution Jazz. Um, I'm using the Baker's Dozen preset on here, and in Guitar Rig, I still use Guitar Rig even though I got pedals and everything, because they have like some really cool like left field type of sounds. This is a preset called Halftime Flutter, and this is a really good preset just for making a pitch down trippy guitar. And the MIDI for this is super simple. I'm playing in D minor, and I'm just going up from the one note, the two note, the three note, the four, and the five. I'm just walking up the scale. And when I'm thinking about writing this, like I have guitars, I play struggle guitar, and I'm thinking about this in terms of like, okay, if I was actually to have, if I was sitting here with my guitar, I wouldn't be trying to, put together some crazy melody that has, is being played with three octaves at the same time. I would be sitting here just going up and down the scale. And when you're layering guitar parts and you want it to sound more natural, that's kind of how you want to think about stuff. You don't want to look at it from the perspective of writing a three octave guitar line. It's just something to kind of layer in. This bass that I added, this was coming off my OB6. It's just a really simple bass. The reason why it showed up again, I'm trying to, tell a story with the sample. We've got these two parts where we introduce the pad to add to the lows of everything. And then we had the melody where we're, introducing a different conversation. Now I want to expand on that. I add a different instrument to handle the lows so that we get another part of the story. And for the end of the story, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out all the lows, right? um and right here you see I've changed the guitar melody. Instead of writing the same exact guitar melody, I'm just, using that root note twice. And the only other thing that I have in this sample is an EP where I've just I just kind of strummed a quick chord, strummed a D minor chord, and added some distortion to it. And notice the placement of it. It's not on the same downbeat every time. This will kind of give you some variation in case you get someone who likes to chop samples and they chop on half beats and stuff like that. But this is a very effective type of workflow for making a simple sample just sound so much more complex than it is as from a producer perspective, right? Which is really what you want to go for. You don't want to have a sample that sounds, very complex, because you're not leaving the person who's, either buying your pack or the person that you're collaborating with a lot of room to add their creativity to, which is the number one thing that will get people to actually use your samples, is where a producer can hear themselves adding their flavor into the mix. They want to feel like they're making the beat. They don't want to feel like you're making the beat for them, right? So, to wrap it all up, this is a two chord jam. You start with a high sound. You want to layer it with something that's going to take care of those lower frequencies. Add yourself a melody, but allow it to converse with your chord progression. Don't just have everything playing on the same downbeat. When you want to add a lead guitar line, simply sometimes just going up the scale will work. Swap it out for a simple bass line, but don't have your bass line super loud. Do not have your bass line going throughout the entire length of the sample. Producers hate that. And then just, make sure that you have some good texture loops, guys. Look for good Foley stuff. The only one stuff is amazing. It'll help the textures of your samples a lot. And if you guys want more detailed information on stuff like this, producer courses /sample class. We break it down into 4 easy payments. We go into deep detail, showing the piano roll, showing you guys how to use your hardware, showing you guys how to make your software sound like hardware, showing you how to start up your business. And soon we're going to be adding to the course the fundamentals of content creation and how to actually advertise your store. So this is CMP with producercourses.com. You guys keep it simple. Don't be basic. We will see you on the next one.